Hello, it's been a while. I don't know when or if anyone is watching these. I'm aware that I can look and see view counts, but I don't know what reality always is. But partially what I really mean is that if you are watching these, you might not be watching them in the order that I'm actually posting them. And right now it's October 20th in 2025, and I think the last time I shared one of these was in August. September. Well, I'm not going to get into a whole story about what I've been up to, but some things happened that were not planned, that were not like chaotic or inconvenient scenarios or situations, but really just like things that I did that I found interest in that I didn't realize I was going to do. Um, but I know because I hadn't posted, YouTube was like, you've lost access to something. I don't know. I didn't even check because you're not going to hear me saying like and subscribe. I mean, you are definitely, I would like if you liked things because then I can't see who likes stuff, but at least I'm like, cool. Someone's like, all right. Like it's like thumbs up. But otherwise, my goal is to share this because I want to and to encourage people to do what they want. So here we are at the fifth episode of the 88 series. This is the last slide, I believe, of actually, was it? I remember I went over a bunch of stuff there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is the last slide of the last video. That's how I like to do it. I don't know if you can hear the little tune, but my mom's washing clothes and our washer sings after it's done. It's kind of cute. Poseidon, basilica, paisley, ermine. Before, I had mentioned an animal called the stoat or ermine. So some of my references here, if you haven't watched any of these, I mean, I hope you have, so it makes some sense, but I also don't believe in everything needing to make sense. So you do you. But um, I was teaching a class when I made these slides, and we had live calls during it. So some of it I might reference things that I didn't mention to you, but that I mentioned during the class. So take it with a grain of salt, and let's just play around here with the story that I'm telling. I like that I was like, I need two hands. Okay. I mentioned an animal called the stoat or ermine, and this was because a friend had a tarot or oracle card that depicted one. I don't remember which. She didn't know what it was, and I was able to tell her in the comments on this video she made because I had recently found an old book. Is it over there? I think it's out there. An old book from my childhood that I thought burned in the house fire that we had. Um, but that book had an or has an ermine in it. And I had just looked at the book and then I went on Instagram and saw her video and I was like, I know what that is. Helpful info here. So I was going to bring up ermines because they are not exactly similar, but sort of similar to one of the snake's only known enemies, the mongoose. Different species, different spices. And while I was looking for some imagery for cockatrice and came across these two images that somehow blended into the background, see, they are not here, but they are here. It's a key. I'll show you in a minute. So when I searched the image, I was led to this page and I am or was mind blown. Um, I'll show you now. So I'm gonna have to stop sharing and then share to this, but let me get it pulled up first. Okay, so let me show you. Let me see if I can share this screen. Are we there sharing it? Yeah, okay, so I'm on Wikipedia. Okay, not everybody likes Wikipedia, that is okay. And I have typed in ermine, and you see here we have the page that says ermine heraldry. the white winter fur and black tail end of the stoat, which is historically worn by and associated with royalty and high officials. So clicking on that. What I'm really speaking to when I say something that's there but not seen, what did I say? Um, I already forgot. They are not here, but they are. So when I click on this imagery, which are, or this image contains variations of ermine spots found in heraldry over the centuries. If we just continue to press this arrow, we come across some things like these shields. And then this is there. So that was on the slide that I'd showed you on the first one, as is this. And the reason I say they're there, but they're not, and notice it says 11 out of 11 slides. If we view the whole page, those imagery, the last two, are not visible here. Um, and so they're there, but they're not. And it's a key. It reminds me of actually the and if any of you ever played, I know there's video games, but I played computer games when I was younger. Commander Keen. And part of the game was that there would be like walls or things that looked like blockades. But if you knew, and it was crazy because this is how you know, like the layers of what we see are different, especially when we're younger. I could just see them. It's like I could see the way they built the game, and I'd be like, oh, there's a little tunnel. But you'd have to kind of wiggle up the wall a little bit to find like the inn. And so things were there, but you just might not see them. And it's a key of sorts. So this layer is something that relates to more than just what I'm bringing up in this regard, but this whole storyline that I'm pointing out, acknowledging, spinning, telling with this 88 series. But first, ermine, a stoat, especially in its white winter coat, late 12th century from Old French ermine, modern French hermine, like Hermione, used in reference to both the animal and the fur. Apparently, the word is a convergence of Latin mus, Armenius, Armenian, mouse, ermines being abundant in Asia Minor, and an unrelated Germanic word for weasel represented by Old High German Harmo, ermine, stoat, weasel. Harmon, don't be harming me or anyone, okay? Harmo, Hirma, I hear ma, shrew, um, and Old English. It says it's is that old OED, old OED. Whatever. Splits the difference between competing theories. The fur, especially with the black of the tail, see here at the bottom, inserted at regular intervals in the pure white of the winter coat, was used for the lining of official and ceremonial garments. In England, especially judicial robes, hence figurative use from 18th century for the judiciary. Um, Ew, all of it. And now, mind you, yes, I am not a plant-based eater or a vegan, so I can't be like, okay, well, I definitely eat things that I probably could be friends with. So, like, ew to that, to some layer. But that heraldry and that hierarchy and I mean, if you get the deeper layers without me having to point them out, because I feel that's the safer thing for me to do by using the internet and YouTube to relay these messages. But ew, it's like a unspoken way to let people know who you are, and you only know if you know. And even if you know, you might not be in the club, but you know. Distribution of stoats. They're found in the northern hemisphere and more specifically in an area that extends broadly from the Tropic of Cancer to the Arctic Circle. So we'll talk some about that stuff too, the tropics and the Arctic circles. It is therefore found in Europe, and we already have touched on it, I think. I don't actually remember, so just forgive me, please, if I have confused you. It is therefore found in Europe as well as Asia and North America. Blah, 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 blah. I don't need to read all this. In 2018, The stoat was chosen as Animal of the Year in Switzerland by the Pro Natura organization. In this country, this small predator is the victim of the disappearance of its biotope, the agricultural landscape. Funny, Switzerland, CERN. We'll talk a little bit about CERN as well. Is it just because of the agricultural landscape, physically and literally, or is there another layer of what the story is in that everything is living to a degree to which people would not actually want to acknowledge, not because they didn't purely want to, but because of social stigma and the things that you should talk about or should not talk about and how people react? So, what I'm partly saying is here, it's not all about bad aliens, but the idea that stories are the most accurate historical representation of what has been going on here. And mind you, some stories were created to relay historical information to the point where, just like with certain art, and a lot of this has to do with symbology to some degree, but not to the layer that has been I don't want to say corrupted because I don't think at a base level things have been corrupted. It's more like illusory and manipulation to use something in a way like a symbol and say it's for this when really it's for everybody. Um so I could go on with the layers, but let's just continue. Oh, this is a little bit of Google, at the top of the page. It's the AI, I think. So just I don't use AI really. No, use it if you want to. I don't care. I mean, I care to a degree, but that's not what we're talking about. What I'm saying here is this is just a snapshot of me Googling what's the mythology of the story. It might have been DuckDuckGo, but either way, I think it was Google if it has that. Whatever. Let me shut up. The Ermine portrait, William Seeger, 1585. 1500s. Very interesting timing. Elizabeth I shown with an ermine symbolizing purity. In Ireland, stoats were thought to behave like humans who had family structures and rituals for the dead. Seeing a stoat at the beginning of a journey was considered bad luck unless you greeted the animal as a neighbor. All is alive and conscious. So we see here the painting, her holding, or this, she's not holding the ermine is on her arm. We'll get into a little bit of this stuff later because I didn't really know about this. You could say that I'm a poor and I did not know nothing about these symbols. I did in my own story in my own way, but I didn't realize how literal it's been taken to the degree where really the purity being shown here is like more about her being a virgin or something about her sexuality. It doesn't mean that she wanted it that way necessarily, but that's what we're looking at to a degree with some of these paintings. We do have Lady with an Ermine over here by Leonardo da Vinci as well. So pretty muscular Hermine. Also, I just want to note at the bottom, it says that this Ermine portrait is attributed to William Seeger, but also some say George Gower. I don't know. Furore heraldique ermine. Ermine heraldry. In heraldry, the ermine is a fur represented by a field of silver and white equals silver gray, sewn with speckles of sable. So I know that looks like some gibberish, but it's just the ones and the twos and the threes is the way the pattern is ordered. So I'm sure you've seen something with these shields, like something similar, or these actual shields and symbols, or you've seen like what's over here on the right, the coat with ermine. The emperor, what is that one? I was gonna say the emperor has no clothes, but I don't know if that's what it's called. What I'm calling it right now. But I just remember when I was little that he still had this cape with the that pattern on it. And so it's like it seeps in everywhere, not to the degree where it's like it's evil, it's bad, it's immoral, but it's almost like we are I mean, I almost like we are a part of this living egregor or entity that is life itself in a way that spans beyond what has been written in a way that people are so afraid to face what feels unfamiliar and scary that then rules and laws have been made to amplify this strict divide or separation between things that are maybe not quite what they have been made to be or not quite what they seem. So it's interesting. Sometimes ermine incorrectly refers to a single speckle. That's incorrect. Representing the tail of the ermine. The ermine is also a piece of furniture, a figurative representation of the carnivore. Not, sorry, my parents are talking. Distracted me. So plain ermine here is this shield with the white and black. It's from Brittany. And then I don't remember which one is down here on the bottom, but that's another version of the shield with the same symbology, which again, if we go, well, actually, I put it there. That's the one from the Wikipedia page. There are many variations. Interesting to see just that this upward arrow is one. Um, because again, it's not necessarily about full on manipulating people, but everything being everything. Finding anything in everything, everything in anything, and that everything in the fabric of reality is to a degree made up of the same stuff. So if someone wanted to manipulate people, they could very masterfully and cleverly and with craft include symbology in things and maybe even with certain tones or music or sayings that would entrain or entrance someone to be manipulated. It doesn't mean it's the truth because even when it comes to memory, memory is eternal. You don't actually ever forget things, and yet there's an illusory mechanism within not just our physical being, but energetic, mental, emotional, spiritual, whatever that can make us forget or not remember things. And not that we need to carry everything around, but there's many interesting layers here with even what is considered to be neurodivergence to a degree, like the ability to retain a lot of information and memories like I do. But then you see the way psychology talks about memory and a lot of things dealing with things like hypnosis will talk about how like memories are like partial, like your brain makes some up and some of it's subconscious, which is true, but that's still a major layer of gaslighting to like make it clinical to a degree. While people don't take hypnosis that seriously still, it's still something you could look up on like online and find places near you potentially that people are offering it, whether it's to quit smoking or past life regression, whatever. It's not bad. But we'll get into this further too. A big theme of this is talking about business. It's not that all business is bad, but maybe it is. Hermine, ermine, manufacturing, heraldic symbol. So on each animal used to make a garment, the tip of the tail, always black, was separated from the rest of the fur and then placed in the middle of each of the skins, sewn side by side and fixed by three bars or clasps arranged in a cross. This tip of the tail, decorated with these three stitches called ermine speckling, has become in stylized form a heraldic motif. To speckle ermine is to sew small pieces of black fur in onto it at intervals to represent a sort of small flies. More generally, this corresponds to the sprinkling the resulting garment with a small regular spots of a color other than that of the background. Sable or false ermine is a pattern of speckles consisting of simply the small tail without the attachment points, dotting the lining of the top of the coat and the top of the bonnet or the toque. Used as fur, the ermine motif is stylized as a small raised cross with disjointed and irregular branches, the three at the top very short, even reduced to the points, the foot often pat, and ending in 3 points 6. What I'm not going to keep reading here. I just wanted to like offer up a little bit more. You can screenshot this or go look it up yourself because I'm pretty sure I grabbed it from Wikipedia or elsewhere. My apologies for not noting that, but I'm laying the like foundation here to continue this story. And sorry if you hear my parents in the background. I don't know what they're doing. Hermine Shield. Ermine. I know it's not Hermine, but I mentioned Hermione, and I will say it like that sometimes. Ermine Shield. And then I'm doing this accent that is whatever. Of ermine, heraldry indicates the use of a variation of ermine fur on an element, shield, partition, piece of furniture, etc., of the coat of arms. Okay, never mind. It is, I've got my intrusive thoughts of random. random things. It is a gold field sown with sable ermine spots represented on a single layer. The spots are not above the field, but inside. So there's layers upon layers of symbology and interpretation here for, let's say, someone to read something like this one way that's more general, but then there's also other layers of what would be connected to what we might call like secret societies, brotherhoods, legacies of a certain order. So these again are the variations in the shapes of the ermine speckles, which I think look cool. These look like feathers, like a peacock feather. Got like a club energy going on. Looks kind of like antlers. Looks like an antenna, like generator energy. So again, what I'm saying is like, yes, this is what it got turned into. On this here, this looks like one of those sticks that you could use. I forget what it's called, but it's like a map carved into the stick. Um, no written, no one can tell you what all of these mean, even if I can offer up this stuff. There's something to what has been taken as the concrete evidence of a story through written text or written whatever. And while that has value, it is still up to the analyzation of someone with a lot of bias. So like considering right now, there's still like a layer of telepathy that people aren't cued into, and not that I'm like the most telepathic. There's something to things that are unspoken but felt. So not even spoken, but also not written necessarily. So there's much to be found or to be acknowledged that is, let's say, what is air? Like the air element in astrology or Chinese medicine or whatever. Like this isn't just negative space. I mean, you could say that because like, oh, this is like, I'm going and it stops. And yet there are a lot of things that we, for one, you could say take for granted or easily dismiss or don't acknowledge if given that like there is a lot of information or there is connection to everything and anything through this elemental air energy, which is all around me. Doesn't have to just be the wind. Um, but also I might have forgotten the other point that, oh, also that let's say I didn't believe my hand could go through something physical, then I would probably witness that. And yet, a lot of that has to do with, let's say, the layers of subconscious patterning that are laid down from before you were here, and then whatever happens when you were born and what you were born into, like what kind of environment and family and how you were conditioned to believe things. Like, can you walk through walls? Maybe. Maybe we don't talk about it. Also, I want to say these look like beards. These ones, I don't know if you can see where my arrow is. Um, okay, so let's continue on here. Fur heraldry. Furs are two-tone compositions using a metal and an enamel, described as mixed, that is to say, used in association with figures, pieces, or furniture. They are therefore not subject to the rule of contrasting colors. Generally, designers of arms seek the greatest possible contrast and use ermine rather as a metal, with silver being dominant. Ermine with a gules band, which is from the commune of Glagion, in the north, and counter ermine as an enamel, with the sable being dominant. It's a lot of like gibberish to some degree. Counter ermine with two gold chevrons, which is from the Somner. See, they're like, it's from this. It's from this. No, it's not. It is, but it's not. For vares, where neither azure nor silver dominates, we will especially seek to avoid the association with azure or silver. So there's a lot of rules with all of that. Mind you, there's also maybe reasons people do these things and then reasons people corrupt them for other reasons that are not the reasons that aren't as let's say like one is more positive and one is more negative, and yet it's not all that clear or like polarized all the time, concretely, absolutely. An example of a coat of arms placing fur on fur, cut ermine to a vair ermine and vair to a glass of ermine. Down here, this glass of ermine. Uh, this says completely regular, meaning this is a regular kind of approach, I guess. Um, Yeah. So funny that this all came from me opening a book that I thought got burnt in the fire and then being like, what's this little guy? Oh, he's so cute. Oh, an ermine. And then like from there, and as while I was doing the class, it's like I was adding things in as I was sharing, and that's kind of the point of what I'm doing is not necessarily proving or needing to, but showing that when you do focus on certain things, you can, by acknowledging them, you sort of like wake some things up. Hold on one second. I want to do something. Okay, so moving on, we have Poseidon, Basilica, Paisley, and here we have Basilica, nod to Notre Dame and St. Peter's. More on the Vatican later. I've been to both of those places. 1540s, 1500s type of building based on the Athenian royal portico, large oblong building with double columns and a semicircular porch at the end. From Latin basilica, building of a court of justice. From Greek stoa, basilique, royal portal. In Athens, oh, I had a sticker stuck to me. Look at this cute um, bookmark. Cardinals, Vatican. There's always a story. Okay, where was I? In Athens, this was the portico of the Archon Basilius, the official who dispensed justice there. The word is thus from the feminine adjective of Basilius, king, see basil. In Rome, the style of the building was used for the halls of justice, many of which were subsequently appropriated as churches, and so it became a standard plan for new churches. The word is applied to the seven principal Roman churches founded by Constantine. That's my middle name. Well, Constantina. This, I feel like I've probably mentioned that already because it's a part of the whole story. Okay. The specific reference to Christian churches in English is attested by 1560s. And so, what is it, like 1585 when we get to the calendar, or is it 82 or 85? I forget. But when we get to the Julian to um Gregorian calendar shift, which I have learned a little bit more since I shared the slides initially. So I'll be adding some stuff in when we get to the calendar portion of this story. Paisley, 1834, as a type of clothing or material from Paisley, a town in southwest Scotland, Alba, where the cloth was originally made. And as an adjective by 1900, the town is literally church, from Middle Irish basilic itself from Latin basilica. Some imagery that came to me during this exploration of the fabric of reality are on the next slides. So this is Paisley on the left. And this is sort of like a paisley on the right, but this is like the Ekasha seal, which you might find more in the cheilontic science realm. And then on the left, we have another image from cheilontic science that gives me this paisley vibe. And then on the right, we have an actual image from the paisley, probably the Wikipedia page or something. But just wanting to show these similarities here of what came to me when looking at Paisley. And so I just changed the background to highlight different things. Ekasha Crown Veka Code, the Universal God Seed. So, I don't know what the arrows are. I'm just going at it here. There's a lot of things I could have looked up or looked into, considering I already read these slides whenever, months and months and months ago, and did the same thing where I'm like, I don't know what these arrows are. But a thre e na a. Symbol placement is pineal induction via chakra 6, the third eye. The idea is that you stare at something, whether in silence or repeating something like that tone, and the pineal induction, meaning that it goes into your pineal gland. It kind of sends this mirror geometrical imprint to your own blueprint, and it realigns things to their you could say more original blueprint. So this is the Unisai Ekasha Godseed code, and then you see with these arrows here, it's pointing there. The Rouge Ekasha core code. So we'll come back to this because as you can see, it looks like an X or a cross. And there's a lot of things connecting back to this that you could say have been taken a lot of ways, but there was a flood that occurred in our memories and the unfamiliarity creating divides and lines between family and it being used, the cross and the X being used in these ways, like we're always searching for something. And a part of it is the something we forgot about, which is the dimensional mechanics of this plane, which are connected to everything here as well as ourselves. And, I'm not going to focus too much on all of the things that could be evil and wrong, but I will continue to mention them. The Paisley witches, also known as the Bargaran witches, I'm sorry, I don't know all the actual correct pronunciations. Um, oops, Bargaran witches or the Renfrewshire witches which were tried in Paisley in 1697. So this is that place in Scotland. Seven, so the number seven coming up a lot in different ways. Seven were convicted and five were hanged and then burnt on the Gallow Green. Their remains were buried at Maxwellton Cross in the west end of the town. This was the last mass execution for witchcraft in Western Europe. A horseshoe was placed on top of the site to lock in the evil. A horseshoe is still visible in the middle of this busy road junction today, though not the original. The modern shoe is made of bronze and bears the inscription, pain inflicted, suffering endured, injustice done. If you remember, I talked about the horseshoe crabs in the first or second episode. The Paisley witches, also known as the ones I already read. I'm sorry. Okay. So they were tried in Paisley, Renfrewshire, Scotland in 1697. There was an 11-year-old Christian Shaw, daughter of Laird of Bargaran, complained of being tormented by some local witches. They included one of her family's servants, Catherine Campbell, whom she reported to her mother after witnessing her steal a drink of milk. How witchy. Seven people: Margaret Lang, John Lindsay, James Lindsay, John Lindsay of Barlock, Catherine Campbell, Margaret Fulton, and Agnes Naismith were found guilty of having bewitched Shaw and were condemned to death. They were hanged, then buried on the Gallow Green in Paisley on 10 June 1697, the last mass execution for witchcraft in Western Europe. Agnes Naismith cursed everyone present at her trial and their descendants, and for many years afterwards, every tragedy in Paisley was blamed on her curse. Christian Shaw went to become a successful business owner and manufacturer of thread. So Christian was fine. In May, oh, this is a tribute to the Paisley witches. In May 2008, a memorial was built at Maxwellton Cross in Paisley, the site where the witches' charred remains were buried. It replaced the original horseshoe marking the spot, which had disappeared during the 1970s and as had its replacement later. The bronze tondo with a stainless steel horseshoe embedded in it includes the inscription I already read: pain inflicted, suffering endured, injustice done. A campaign was launched in 2008 petitioning the Scottish Parliament to pardon all of the 4,000 men, women, and children prosecuted under the 16th and 17th, I'm getting all emotional, 16th and century witchcraft laws. But legislators argued that it was inappropriate to pardon those tried and convicted under the laws of their time. Fucking what? Horseshoe nod once again. Like I mentioned, from the story and the trip to Broadkill Beach, the Horseshoe Crab Sanctuary. And of course, bringing us back to Poseidon's energy once again with the mention of horse. And let us now focus on another symbol of Poseidon or Neptune. Neptune, his trident. But before then, and we're getting into it, but we have the Ekasha Gada. This is the mace of Lord Shiva. A blow from the weapon is the equivalent of being hit by a million elephants. Supposedly carries immense force and destructive capabilities. However, look at this card. The loyalty, connection to community, the fierceness, the chosen softness. This can be true strength and power, true force. An elephant never forgets, or so the saying goes. However, these giant gentle beasts are much more than that. They are highly social animals that form family bonds for life. They're extremely loyal and stick together. If the elephant card has graced your home today, consider yourself fortunate and lucky indeed. Take time to think about what strengths you have and who is in your social circle. Reach out to those you have not connected with or tackle a new creative hobby, or both. Meanings, take time to engage with others. Look towards others who can be loyal to you. Also, elephants communicate through like hypersonic sounds. So the mention of Akasha and then a mace, this brings us back to the trident, of course, as well as another spice. Um, what does it say here? Oh, ah. Oops, I went all the way to somewhere else. Oh my gosh. Okay, let me try to find where I was. Oh, we already did all that. Da, 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 da. I'm sorry about that. Um, I was just trying to see what it said there. Pardon me. This isn't very like important. I can't see it. Another nod to spice. Okay. That's what I thought it said, and yet I was like, does this say something else there? So again, even me doing that is another message or story within this story where like we should trust ourselves a little bit more. And not for the sake of competitive hierarchy, but to encourage others to trust themselves more and show up. And some of the most trusting thing we can do things, I don't know, asking questions, sharing what we actually think and feel. So we're continuing along. Got another story popped in here. When I was young, I was especially curious. I still am, but as I was young, I had less hindsight to contemplate and felt very present in and with my choices. I will share more later about my experience at a Lakota tribe Sundance, but one snapshot was that at one point, before I was about to get into the sweat lodge for a special ceremony dedicated to just me, the only new person, some grandmothers gifted me some earrings. They were metal and they were in the shape of feathers. They told me, do not wear metal into the sweat lodge, not just because it gets hot, but because of the clarity of spiritual energy in such a contained space. I said, okay, got it. Well, I forgot. And I swear that, so I wore the earrings in there, and I swear that someone was flicking the earrings into my face the whole time we were in there. So again, you could say it's from the heat and it's just the way, whatever, but there was no flow of air to that degree in there. Um, Physically at least. We were all sitting so far apart. I kept doing this. Like, get out of here. When I got out and I told the grandmothers that who had gifted me the earrings, they said it was grandmother spirits messing with me because I wore the metal into the lodge, even though I had expressed that I understood that I should not. They said, it's not your fault until you know. AKA, if I had blindly worn them in, I may not have had such an experience, but because I was told and knew I should not, and I still did, the consequence was playful distraction and energy movement. It's not your fault until you know. Awareness isn't everything, but it is so much. So within heraldry, I guess we're not getting to the Neptune's trident just yet. We're almost there, but I forgot that I added some new things in. So, when I shared these week by week in the class, it was like a little shorter of videos maybe, or I had different things. So like they were ending and beginning at certain moments. Here, I've kind of glommed them all together. So that's why I said take it with a grain of salt and bear with me here as I hopefully don't confuse you too much, but what we're doing here is still talking about heraldry. So it's a discipline related to the design, display, and the study of armorial bearings known as armory, as well as related disciplines such as vexillology, together with the study of ceremony, rank, and pedigree. Armory, the best known branch of heraldry, concerns the design and transmission of the heraldic achievement. The achievement or armorial bearings usually include a coat of arms on a shield, helmet, and crest, together with any accompanying devices such as supporters, badges, heraldic banners, and mottos. Funny enough, I dated someone when I lived in New York whose mom is the president of the Park Avenue Armory. And so it's a big place that they used to store a lot of weaponry. And so it's a big hall now that's used for artists' performance and other things. But I was so weirded out by some of the shows they held there. And some of the famous people that would come to these shows were usually pretty outwardly spoken about politics in a certain way. So I've always been like, I don't know if I could say I'm on one solid side of things, but I do like to remain aware of certain energies and just be like, this energy that I call bad alien energy exists everywhere, it seems. So not to fearmonger, but one small example I'll give is that a lot of people may, and I'm not saying this is all true, but one of the things people talk about is Marina Abramovich and her spirit cooking and Lady Gaga. And I think I have it here. Let me- Excuse me. But I went to a show in 2013, I think it was, at the Armory, and it was a Marina Abramovich show, and Willem Dafoe was in it. And I remember it was a very bizarre show. Like after the show, I was like, oh, this is like a weird vibe here. Um, I'm trying to scroll down on my Instagram page because it was a long time ago. But while we're watching the show, one thing is that like I don't really have too much to say about Willem Dafoe, although he's been in certain movies and has a certain face that during this show he's kind of scared me. However, he was really looking at me during the show. No, he wasn't looking at me. His friend was sitting right in front of me. And so I kept being like, and mind you, I ate an edible beforehand. But whatever. So we got to the show pretty early. I think I even got up in the middle of the show to pee, which you're not supposed to do, but I guess I just don't do what you're supposed to do. Really had to pee. I think I had these loud shoes if I remember. So, I'm sure a lot of people in my life have seen me, like I said, as a poor. But I did sit right behind Lady Gaga and her then fiance. And funny enough, someone left a comment on this and they were like, "Oh my God, I wish I was there." And their handle or their profile says vampire succubi demon cyborg. Someone I didn't know. And so I'm not even saying that all the things that are conspiracy theories are true, but what I'm saying is I always like to be like, oh, funny if we're talking about a storyline and like everything kind of being the same thing, but in different perspectives, like as if there was a movie and then you got to watch the movie through each character's perspective and truth and whatever. Um, just funny to, have that happen in 2013 and then like, 10 years later or whatever, have so many people talking about Marina Abramovich and Lady Gaga and them having this crazy relationship because that's when it would have been, is when I was in the same room as them. I just remember after the show, everyone was like, "Oh my God, that was so good." And I was like, it was weird because at some point a grown man got in bed with the little girl version of her. It was one of the shows that was about a story of her life. So I'm pretty sure there were, there was some sexual abuse. And mind you, that's her story to tell how she wants to as an artist. But I thought it was another arena where the art world is like weird to me. I've always just thought like there's certain parts of the art world and industry, and it could be the business parts or these other or these like, I'm talking about the armory and a certain kind of people being drawn to the armory and what the energy holds. It doesn't all need to be conscious, and it doesn't need to be like, oh, they're evil demons, whatever. However, there's characters, many characters and stories, and I like to just see how some things play out. So just more things that when you pay attention in certain ways, you will see your own versions of how you've been around stuff. Um, where you were at the right time in the right place to have your own perspective and opinion on certain things. So I feel like part of it is like breaking a stigma, ending certain cycles, or changing the story so the story changes. This is another thing about Vare and ermine spots. I'm not going to read it, but I left it up there in case you wanted to. So up top is ermine heraldry, and then down below that's the fur heraldry. Um this is again the variations. I think I shared these maybe in a live call that I did. So we're mentioning houndstooth, dogs, coyotes, Sirius, the Telkeens. Houndstooth is a pattern of alternating light and dark checks used on the fabric. It is also known as houndstooth check, houndstooth, and similar spelling, dog's tooth, dog tooth, or dog's tooth. That makes me want to get this real quick. If it's up here, it might be over there. I'm still gonna get it. Because I can do what I want. And I'm doing what I want. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This is dog tooth calcite. How well you can actually see it. Do I have my phone nearby? See if I can like shine the light on it. See, it's got like these pointy teeth, like. Doesn't really have to do with the heraldry, but it is black and whitish. The duotone pattern is characterized by a tessellation of light and dark solid checks alternating with light and dark diagonally striped checks, similar in a pattern to a gingham plaid but with diagonally striped squares in place of gingham's blended tone squares. Traditionally, houndstooth uses black and white, although other contrasting color combinations may be used. Um, oh, funny. Ahaha. Okay. So a smaller scale version of the pattern can be referred to as puppy tooth. Oh, so cute. Ermine, Golden Compass, Northern Lights. Ermine, aside from the cool ass synchronicity from what I shared, someone here mentioned aspects from the Golden Compass. So this was a part of that class. Someone mentioned aspects from the Golden Compass and the book series His Dark Materials. This is a 3-book series with the titles being Northern Lights, The Subtle Knife, The Amber Spyglass. It's funny because I was just outside with where did I put it? My big chunk of amber. So even more synchronous titties. So the Golden Compass movie, if you've seen it, is based on the Northern Lights book in the trilogy of His Dark Materials. Okay, now I want to find my amber because I had it and I was like, hey, you should sit with this when you do your recording. I thought I put it over there, but I didn't. So then that makes me giggle more about whatever supposed synchronicities I am attempting to relay. Um, hmm. Actually, okay, I'm gonna pause this real quick because I might have left it outside. That's where I was with it. I had dropped it on the floor and it was by my foot. So, and like I said, everything I'm doing while delivering this is also a part of what I'm trying to relay. Um, so this is just a chunk of amber that I wanted to share. Let me see if I can spin some light on it. Spin some light on it? I don't know what that's about. Um, you can kind of tell that it gets kind of green at the top. You might only be able to see the yellow. I see like the limeish green. All right. Amber. All right, where was I? Okay. Specifically from the Golden Compass and the Northern Lights book, we're looking at Lyra and her demon, but I went to church camp when I was little, and this Australian guy was the music guy, and he would talk about diamonds, but he had the accent. He'd be like, diamond. So that's how I say it. Diamond. Um, Pan is his name. In the birth universe of the story's protagonist, Lyra Balakua, a human individual's inner self manifests itself through as an animal-shaped demon that almost always stays near its human counterpart. During the childhood of its associated human, a demon can change its animal shape at will, but with the onset of adolescence, it settles into a fixed, final animal form. So Lyra is a wild 12-year-old girl. She's grown up in the fictional Jordan College, Oxford. She prides herself on her capacity for mischief, especially her ability to lie, earning her the epithet Silver Tongue from Eoric Byronson. Lyra has a natural ability to use an alethiometer, which is capable of answering any question when properly manipulated and read. Remember, manipulation isn't bad or good, depending on how you use it. Penta Pentalyman is Lyra's demon. Like all children's demons, he changes form from one creature to another frequently. When Lyra reaches puberty, he assumes the permanent form of a pine marten. So at some point prior, he is an ermine. Oh, look at that cute ermine. They're all cute, but hello. And this is that same painting. And look at he said, you didn't greet me before your journey. A curse to your family. Okay. The idea of a daemon was inspired by paintings such as Leonardo da Vinci's Lady with an Ermine, where there seems to be a psychological connection between the lady and the animal. They're both looking in the same direction. Pantalaimon changes to an ermine numerous times during the series, especially when sleeping. We're talking quite a bit about Pisces energy in this journey and the subconscious energies. Early editions of Northern Lights suggested demons could turn into humans. One coin for the demon of a previous master of Jordan College inside the Jordan catacombs depicted a fair woman. So maybe the ermine is also a fair woman. Northern Lights, hyperboreal. The Northern Lights most commonly refers to the aurora borealis, a natural light display in the Earth's sky. An aurora, plural aurorae or auroras, also commonly known as the Northern Lights, aurora borealis, or Southern Lights, aurora australis, is a natural light display in the Earth's sky. Predominantly seen in high latitude regions around the Arctic and Antarctic, auroras display dynamic patterns of brilliant lights that appear as curtains, rays, spirals, or dynamic flickers covering the entire sky. Auroras are the result of disturbances in the Earth's magnetosphere caused by the solar wind. Major disturbances result from enhancements in the speed of the solar wind from coronal holes and coronal mass ejections. These disturbances alter the trajectories of charged particles in the magnetospheric plasma. These particles, mainly electrons and protons, precipitate into the upper atmosphere, the thermosphere and exosphere, resulting in ionization and excitation of atmospheric constituents, emit light of varying colors and complexity. The form of the aurora occurring within bands around the polar regions is also dependent on the amount of acceleration imparted to the precipitating particles. Planets in the solar system, brown dwarfs, comets, and some natural satellites also host auroras. Etymology. The term aurora borealis specifically was coined by Galileo in 1619 from the Roman aurora, goddess of the dawn, and the Greek boreas, god of the cold north wind. The word aurora is derived from the name of the Roman goddess of the dawn, Aurora, who traveled from east to west announcing the coming of the sun. The ancient Greek poets used the corresponding name Eos metaphorically to refer to dawn, often mentioning its play of colors across the otherwise dark sky, e.g., a rosy-fingered dawn. You trying to get in here, Bob? Rosy-fingered dawn. Rose again being another theme. The word borealis and australis are derived from the names of the ancient gods. I know I already mentioned this in another way, but the gods of the north wind, Boreas, and the south wind, Auster, in Greco-Roman mythology. This is from a post I had shared on Instagram, I think in 2023, maybe 2024. Arthur, masculine proper name from medieval Latin Arthurus, Arturus, usually said to be from Welsh arth, bear, cognate with Greek arctos, Latin Ursus. Arctic, late 14th century, Arctic, of or pertaining to the North Pole of the heavens. From Old French Arctique and directly from medieval Latin Arcticus, from Latin Arcticus, from Greek Arcticos, of the north. Literally of the constellation Bear, from Arctos Bear, also Ursa Major, the region of the north, the Bear being the best known northern circumpolar constellation. And this is from Arcto, the usual Indo-European root for bear. For speculation on why Germanic lost the word, see bear, where the C was restored from the 1550s. It is attested from early 15th century as northern, and from the 1660s as cold and frigid. As a noun with a capital A, in the northern polar regions. So I deduced to a degree that the last mud flood was the 1500s, and this is when the calendar shifted, and a lot of meanings of words shifted, but also this freezing, this icing over of certain stories and lineages. Not that things hadn't been going on in a certain way, but there seemed to be these moments in history where there were like not necessarily just cataclysmic moments, but you could say shifts within the vortexes of the spaces, especially where there's manipulation with like ley lines and whatever else they're called that meet up. Kind of like where certain Mormons build their churches and stuff. I'll get into that a little later. Antarctic. Antarctic, opposite to the North Pole. Antarctique, Antarcticus, Antarcticos, opposite the north, anti-opposite, and Arcticos, Arctic. The first C ceased to be pronounced in medieval Latin and was dropped in Old French. Modern English restores it in spelling from the 17th century, also from the late 14th century as a noun. That's the region around the South Pole of the sky or the southern regions of the earth. Arctic Circle, 1550s in astronomy in reference to a celestial circle, a line around the sky which, in any location, bounds the stars which are ever visible from that latitude. And this is like has to do with some tropical astrology stuff too. In the northern hemisphere, its center point is the celestial North Pole. The concept goes back to the ancient Greeks, for whom this set of constellations included most prominently the two bears, Arctoi, hence the name for the circle. In Middle English, it was the North Circle. In geography from the 1620s, as the circle roughly 66 degrees and 32 minutes north of the equator, based on the obliquity of the ecliptic of 23 degrees and 28 minutes, marking the southern extremity of the polar day when the sun at least theoretically passes the north point without setting on at least one summer day and does not rise on at least one winter day. So we'll talk, like I said, a little bit more about calendars and atmospheric stuff in a bit, whenever that comes up. Olympians. In the ancient Greek religion, the 12 Olympians are the major deities of the Greek pantheon, commonly considered to be Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Demeter, Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Ares, Aphrodite, Hephaestus, Hermes, and either Hestia or Dionysus. Hades and Persephone were sometimes included as part of the 12 Olympians, primarily due to the influence of the Eleusinian mysteries. Although in general, Hades was excluded because he resides permanently in the underworld and never visited Olympus. Hyperborean. And this is from Ascension Glossary, this part. When the Electric Wars, and these both might be from, yeah, oh, duh. I could have just looked at the bottom. This is from the Olympians page on Ascension Glossary. When the Electric Wars happened to the Hyperboreans, whatever the Electric Wars truly were, they were split apart from their higher counterparts in Polaris. So when you think of Polarians and Hyperboreans, these are part of the first root races that were ever seeded as a part of spirit coming into a type of body and having a consciousness, having some kind of experience on a planet in a body. Hyperborean in the beginning stages was again a golden age, but by the end, the Electric Wars happened. Again, this is a part of the Orion group and the conflict over dominion over planets such as the Earth. So take that with a grain of salt because I definitely, my whole life, have been like, yeah, bad aliens put a net around the Earth and they're, um, shifting the perception when people are born into this plane. But I don't always agree with the storylines in Keylontic science, but I can respect and acknowledge them because I would like my stories to also be respected and acknowledged in that we all may have like different disjointed, but when together conjoined pieces of a longer story. But also this is a fun tidbit that hopefully, if I recall, we're getting more into the actual Poseidon's trident stuff. We've mentioned some things along the way so far, so you'll see once I get there. Um, okay, so who's going to seed here? Who's going to live here? Why are you here and I'm not? This is what happened, and because of this massive tragedy of war, the Hyperboreans split and fragmented. Some of them were incarnated on our planet, and those mythologies, what we call a mythology of the Hyperborean, are actually the Titans we know in Greek mythology. So when we were talking about Perseus, Zeus, and the Olympians, we're talking about the original races that sourced from the Hyperboreans. Take it with a grain of salt. The Hyperboreans are related to all of that Greek tragedy. When you understand a tragedy, a Greek tragedy, my God, it is. Is it a tragedy? Everything about that mythology is just terrible. It's tragic. The Hyperboreans is part of what became known on our planet. So I would say there's a genetic relationship to that, and there's also a landmass relationship to that. Hence why I am focusing on some Greek mythology here, but we'll get into it. Not just because I'm Greek, but because I think it is funny the echoes and layers from that storyline. Okay. Think of our planet in this density merging with its higher body. Think of our own bodies. We have a soul and we have a monad body. Same thing with the planet Earth. Planet Earth's soul body is Tara. Planet Earth's monad body is Gaia. On the Gaian body, the monad body of the planet Earth, the Hyperboreans existed as a consciousness, and that access point is in the northern part of our planet. Earth, sorry, planet, oh wait, okay. Blah, blah, blah. So when you think about how large these bodies are, remember the monad is like 16 to 20 feet high. You remember my story about when I was one, or maybe that was just in my story. I don't know if I talked about that here. I'm sorry that I forgot. But the story from when I was one, where I'm looking at my hands and I'm like, oh my God, I'm a baby. Time is so slow here. Why is this happening? But I was like, I'm 18 feet tall. I can't fit in anything. And I still have issues to this day with like clothes, but also like going down a slide at a park. I always think I'm gonna get stuck. So the monad body is like 16 to 20 feet high. So could be like part of the energetic body. When you think of Titans and Olympians, you get my meaning. They're big. The monad body is a lot bigger than the body we inhabit on planet today. The Hyperboreans at that time, being in a type of pre-prototype monad body, their bodies were huge. They were big beings. Those are the Titans. I am sure a lot of the Nordic mythologies came out of that. Think of Thor and maybe more into the Swedish, Norwegian, and Celt histories. It's funny because like my dad's Greek and then my mom is Nordic and Swedish and Norwegian and Irish and Scottish and Finnish. So it's like part of why I like to tell stories and bring some of this together is not to be like, these are the correct stories or this is right, but more like, let's acknowledge them all and stop being so hierarchical and competitive in a certain way and try to like hear and feel for deeper meanings and echoes of what is resonant across many cultures and places and ways. Okay. There are probably a lot of overlays coming from the Hyperboreans in those stories of Thor and Nordic and Celt histories, etc. When you think of the Titans and Olympians, there are a lot of similarities. Again, when we understand that this is a part of the 7D Earth and a part of the monad body, we remember that 7D Earth was invaded. So this electric war is related to the understanding how the planetary mind was invaded. What is happening on 7D Earth has a repercussion to the Earth we are on. When you understand that this is all happening simultaneously through various timelines and creations, what does that say? And creation. So, various timelines and creation that you are reflecting an aspect of consciousness of that entire planetary body. So, it's kind of like what I was saying recently to someone that someone reflected to me that I had a gift of prophecy, and I don't like stuff like that. I don't, not that I can't not that I have to reject that I have some sort of gift, but like time is simultaneous. Time is not so linear to the strict degree through which we perceive it mostly in whatever has gone on in this 3D arena. And so when someone thinks it's just like seeing the future and not like connecting to all versions of self, I get like a little offended. I'm like, we are talking about different things, even though we're kind of using the same words to talk about things that sound similar. So it's a lot of layers here. Poseidon, trident, creator, crafter, spice, mace. Mace. Heavy one-handed metal weapon, often with a spiked head for striking. 1300 from Old French, mace, a club, a scepter. From Vulgar Latin, matea, source of Italian mazza, Spanish mazza, mace. Latin, matiola, a kind of mallet. The Latin word is perhaps cognate with Sanskrit matiam, harrow, club, roller. Old Church Slavonic motika, Russian motiga, hoe, plow, medela. As a ceremonial symbol of authority or office, not orifice, a scepter or staff having somewhat the form of a mace of war. It is attested from mid 14th century and related as mace bearer. We are all the mace bearers. Interesting. Something to hold and cause harm or hit, or something that hones and harnesses power and energy. Arctic. 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 Tick. Arc. Story arc. Archetype. Archetype. Could say tick tock, tick tock. A story arc, also a narrative arc, is the chronological construction of a plot in a novel or story. It can also mean an extended or continuing storyline in episodic storytelling media such as television, comic books, comic strips, board games, video games, and films, with each episode following a dramatic arc. My episodes are not like that. There's drama, I'm sure, but I haven't I'm not great at linear, clear stuff in some sense here. It's like when I try to do the linear, really clear cut thing, I don't enjoy it as much, and my spice gets lost in the strict structure of it. If I'm just trying to share a process or have someone understand something like, let's say, human design, it's a little easier to use a strict structure and whatever. But with this stuff, there isn't maybe like a whole episode as what we're talking about here with a story arc. I just called them episodes. On a television program, for example, the story would unfold over many episodes. I guess that is what I'm doing, actually. In television, the use of a story arc is common in sitcoms and even more so in soap operas. In a traditional Hollywood film, the story arc usually follows a three-act structure. Webcomics are more likely to use story arcs than newspaper comics, as most webcomics have readable archives online that a newcomer to the strip can read in order to understand what is going on. They can just click. Although story arcs have existed for decades, more like centuries, more like forever. Okay. One of the first appearances of the term was in 1973 by Time magazine for a synopsis of the movie The Friends of Eddie Coyle. He accomplishes this with no sacrifice to the pacing of his action sequences or the suspenseful development of his story's arc. Many American comic book series are now written in 4 or 6 issue arcs within a continuing series. Short story arcs are easier to package as trade paperbacks for resale and more accessible to the casual reader and than the never-ending continuity that once characterized U.S. comics. And we'll talk about comic books much later as well. Corollary to the absence of continuity, however, is that, as exemplified in 1950s DC Superman comics, no permanent change to characters or situation occurs, meaning no growth can take place, sorry. Thus, storylines repeat over time in a loop. Isn't it funny that my brain just put in the word change there? There's no change that can really occur. So this is when the stories go on, but then every beginning of the next story resets to, the OG plot line or whatever. And that's like what we're doing here. We are in a story arc that loops. A character arc is the transformation or inner journey of a character over the course of a story. And again, I'm sorry that I didn't just put Wikipedia down there because I know this is from Wikipedia. If a story, I know you don't care, but it is in my values to acknowledge where I've gotten information. I just know when I made these slides, I was like, ooh, 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 I was so excited and putting it together all crazy like. And don't mind the page numbers at the bottom. Again, not that you care. Like, I feel like I care a lot more about things and maybe coming off a certain way than whoever's watching this might care. If a story has a character arc, the character begins as one sort of person and gradually transforms into a different sort of person in response to changing developments in the story. Since the change is often substantive and leading from one personality trait to a diametrically opposite trait, for example, from greed to benevolence, the geometric term arc is often used to describe the sweeping change. In most stories, lead characters and protagonists are the character, and the characters are the characters most likely to experience character arcs, although lesser characters often change as well. A driving element of the plots of the many stories is that the main character seems initially unable to overcome opposing forces, possibly because they lack skills or knowledge or resources or friends. To overcome such obstacles, the main character must change, possibly by learning new skills, to arrive at a higher sense of self-awareness or capability. Main characters can achieve such self-awareness by interacting with their environment, by enlisting the help of mentors, by changing their viewpoint, or by some other method. So this was a part of the third live group call. Um, so some of the themes that I brought up, did I bring that up yet? All right, now I gotta take a pause. Although I might wrap this up pretty soon anyway. You might not remember, but I did bring up Cora when I talked about Poseidon and Neptune initially. So again, like just flow with me. Let it wash over you. I don't know why I like to say that. Just let it wash over you. Um, hey, I feel like did a picture fall or something? Sorry, I got distracted. Okay, so Cora, Korra, or Cora, Cora, was brought up, and this reminded me of the movie Coraline, a storyline. Maybe someone wants to watch or rewatch it to feel into the themes that arise for themselves. I love this movie, and I love how I can find anything in everything. And so while stories and TV shows and movies may have seemingly been created by the person who brought them into form, they are for everyone and to our own interpretation. So you can navigate that however you want. But I know when I watch a movie like Coraline, I can watch it in different ways and get a lot of different meanings that the person who made it didn't mean at all, really. I mentioned dolphin and then Dorado and then the Doratic current, etc. Something that I wanted to add on to that is Dorito. A note on vision and possibility, a perpetuated and insistent story of good versus evil. So the term Dorito is a contraction of Spanish doradito, little fried and golden thing, which is a diminutive of dorado, fried and golden thing. The original product was made at the Casa de Fritos, now Rancho del Zocalo, at Disneyland in Anaheim, California, during the early 1960s. Using surplus tortillas and taking inspiration from a traditional Mexican snack known as totopo, citation needed. Makes me think of Toto from The Wizard of Oz. The company-owned restaurant cut them into smaller pieces, fried them, and added basic seasoning. I think I might have messed this up, though. Okay, no, I don't know why this is there. And maybe I just don't remember why. The dye in Doritos was used in an experiment that, like a magic trick, created see-through mice, achieving optical transparency in live animals with absorbing molecules. So the editor's summary of this experiment. Optical imaging of biological tissues is hindered by the scattering and, to a lesser extent, absorption of light that limits the penetration depth. Wu et al. Addressed this problem through an approach that at first may seem counterintuitive. The introduction of highly absorbing molecules, see the perspective by Rollins and Gorecki. The authors show that the addition of common dye molecules that absorb in the near ultraviolet and blue regions improve optical transparency in nearby longer wavelengths. In essence, by causing sharp absorption in the blue region, the refractive index in the red part of the spectrum is increased without increasing absorption. The addition of tartrazine was able to make the skin of a live rodent temporarily transparent. Do I have anything more here? Okay, so that slide was probably supposed to come after, but I switched them around by accident. But what we're looking at here is a lot of things that came back from this. The idea is that they put this color that they realized was the same color as the Doritos. This is not the order that it happened in. They weren't like, whoa, let's use that Dorito dye. I don't know how they came to the conclusion fully, but the idea is that when applying this color and this dye, the skin became translucent and they were able to basically like see through the skin and into the rodent. So some people say that this might be why certain dyes are not good for us. And they were getting from this experiment summary and whatever they read, basically that if this dye makes parts of our skin translucent, it maybe increases communication between certain parts of our body that are not supposed to be communicating so directly, therefore causing some sort of cacophony or chaos or disorder in a certain chain of events. And so not that it's directly just like, it's bad, it's toxic, more like it is causing this see-through energy and allowing communication between parts of the body that are not supposed to be so, like maybe there's something that's supposed to go like do 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 do, and instead it's like, I don't know. But also this makes me think of the color blue. For one, blue light is what people fearmonger a lot about when it comes to light in our eyes. Two, blue, throat chakra. Thyroid, parathyroid, how many health issues are there with the thyroid and parathyroid? Three, that blue as a color in history has been seen a certain way. And so when we're looking at this blue region, the refractive index, the red part of the spectrum is increased. I don't know, it makes me just think about like what a lot of layers of this reality and what we can see and not see and maybe what is by design and what is more like a pejorative manipulation. But we won't get into all that right now. I could definitely go on a tangent. Um, so this is just a chart that I don't necessarily agree with because I believe we emit microwaves. I know people will say we don't, but I believe what I believe, and we'll talk about it at some point. But just playing around with what is considered to be true and untrue and sciencey science of it all with the penetration of Earth's atmosphere and the radiation type and the wavelengths and temperatures and frequencies. Butterflies. More things for you to penally and pineally, pineally. That sounds a little weird. But induce. Don't need to understand it all, but take in what you will. Wavelength, frequency, and photon energies of different colors. This is very literal and figurative. Over here on the left, we have Newton's color circle from Optics of 1704, showing colors he associated with musical notes. The spectral colors from red to violet are divided by the notes of the musical scale, starting at D. The circle completes a full octave from D to D. Newton's circle places red at one end of the spectrum next to violet at the other. This reflects the fact that non-spectral purple colors are observed when red and violet are mixed. So, take that however you want when they're like, this reflects the fact, blah, blah, blah. But there's also many color wheels that exist. So I'm not sharing this just to flip everything around, or say it has to be all nice and equal and even and cookie cutter-ish, but that there's many different storylines. I don't think there's one thing at all going on this earth plane. I think there's more than one thing going on at all times. Here in the middle, we have a color wheel representing secondary, or primary and secondary colors. And, in a certain lens that is here, red, yellow, and blue as the primary, purple or violet, orange, and green as the secondary. Over here on the right, we have 7-color and 12-color circles from 1708, which are attributed to Claude Boutet. I don't know if that's how you say it, but I didn't know I was gonna say it, and then I said it. Boutte. Yeah, I'm like 7 years old. Sorry. I'm not sorry. This is how I stay laughing. But yeah, just showing you things. And we're just talking about the Dorito stuff and Dorado, little fried golden thing. That's all we are here. We are Doritos. And this has nothing on it. So yeah, actually, I know I said I was gonna talk about the trident, and then it was like I teased at it again. We're almost there. So we're still almost there, but I'm gonna wrap this one up and record another one soon and post it. So thank you for being here. And let me see, where's that slide that I say thank you? Thank you. Until next time. All right, toodles.